Hello and welcome to Inside Edition to discuss national, regional and international issues in depth. Since its establishment in 1970, the Bahrain Red Crescent Society has been a fundamental part of Bahrain's charity, relief and philanthropic work in and outside of the kingdom. The society, which is considered one of the oldest voluntary and humanitarian societies in Bahrain and the region, will soon celebrate 50 years of dedicated efforts and being at the forefront of extending helping hands to those in need in any part of the world, while disregarding geographic distance, religious, racial or cultural differences. To know more about the role and efforts, especially during the current health circumstances, we are pleased to be joined here at the studio by the previous Secretary General and Board Member, Dr. Fawzi Amin, right after this. Welcome back. Joining me in the studio is Dr. Fawzi Amin. Thank you very much for being with us today.
Thank you for the invitation.
Doctor, the Bahrain Red Crescent Society is celebrating this year its 50th year Jubilee anniversary. It is a member of the international movement around the world, and the movement has been created a long time ago, not just by Bahrain, but in regional partners and international partners in specific. What can you give us about a brief about the history of the society and also how it was established and the progress that it has gone through?
Yeah, you know that we are member of that federation, and it is an opportunity to know how this federation created. And it is linked even with what we call the Red Cross movement. It's a very interesting story how this came up, which is very similar the way that we create our society here in Bahrain.
Yeah. Long
time ago in 1856, which was very long time, a Swiss businessman was visiting, in his business, visiting different area. At that time, in Europe, there were all wars between each other. And unfortunately, from the beginning, in humankind, it's always resolved the disagreement by using violence, and then a war.
Yeah.
And then, those winners, they set their rules and arrange the whole thing. So the war itself became a necessity. You cannot deny it. It's even the history is full with the stories and heroes.
Conquering.
And that's going on. So, but the bad thing about it, about the war, is those who are, the soldier and others who are injured. He went to Italy, in the northern of Italy, an area called Silverino.
Okay.
I visited this area, and still they put a very, very high flag of Red Cross at marketing the events which happening. He saw the battle between the Austrian and the French. And as usual, all the soldiers left and supported, bleeding, injured to death. He was horrified with the picture itself.
Yeah.
And what he's done, he brought the people around the area, and they tried to help. That was the first aid, you can say, activities to support the soldiers.
Yeah.
And he also talked to the army, the French army, and said, can't you release the physician and nurses, the Austrian, to helping us? In the beginning they were hesitant, and they said, there's no problem, let us see what will happen. And he started this community, and they start to help those people. He engaged with this idea. When he returned back to Switzerland, he started to write a book, which is well known, A Memory of Silverino. And in this book, he put all the details, what he saw, and he asked him for two things. He said, can we do a kind of organizing a group for medical people or even health worker, aid, who can provide the help for the soldier and injured in the battlefield. And the other thing is, he said, can't we have a treaty, an agreement that we sign in the peacetime, that if we have hostility and we end up by a war, that we will protect those people. We will let them to do their work, and they will provide the help and need for both enemies. And he just wrote this book. Other businessmen in Switzerland also liked the idea, and they said, well, let us even promote it more than just limited with the Swiss. The government of Switzerland also took this seriously, and this is an example of an idea which sometimes we underestimate its effect, but it required a kind of follow-up, and that's what happened.
Yeah.
They sent this book to the different leaders within Europe and get a positive response. Most of the people who are engaged in this war, they thought will be a great idea.
Yeah.
Why we don't sign it, and it will be for our benefit. Maybe today we are the winner, tomorrow we will be losing the battle, and we need our people to be. And that's the beginning. That's a humanitarian spirit which created the whole Geneva Convention that we hear about it. And from there it started to continue progressing. And the First World War, and then they engage in a lot of activities, but they face difficulty that the army could not identify those people.
Who was who?
Who was who? And they said, can't we have something to make any identification for them? And they thought, what kind of thing we can do is to, as a recognition for the Switzerland, to reverse the flag. So it is instead of white cross
and red.
They make it red cross and a white background.
Yeah.
And that was accepted, and all the army, and it's written in details in the Treaty of Geneva. So all the armies, they will be taught that once you see this flag, don't touch them.
Yeah.
Protect them. And the thing continue, and more country join. And at that time, the Arab country was under the Ottoman Empire.
Mm-hmm.
And they show interest also, the Ottoman Empire, but they said, we need to do the same thing, reverse the Ottomani flag.
Yes.
Which is again red crescent with the white background.
Yes.
Because they say we want to customize this to our people. It's remind them with the crusade and things, and we don't want it. We know that it's not related to religion, but we need also to be accepted. And with the desire to have this international, they accept, and there was 2 Red Cross and Red Crescent from that time. And then there was a creation in 1919, what we call it today, the Federation of Red Cross.
Okay.
So the society, the international committee, was 150 years. And last year we were celebrating 100 years for the creation
the International
of
Federation.
the International Federation, which we are member of.
Yes.
Bahrain is the same thing. In 1970, the different businessmen here in Bahrain, they decided that they will formulate a charity in the same way, to help needy, to help vulnerable people. And at that time, Bahrain is always linked with the health problem, which is cholera.
Yeah.
We were having cholera. And, they are supportive to the municipality, was responsible in that. And also, at that time, health authority, before it became independent. And when it became Bahrain independent, started, those people, they, consider them as a founder for the society. And still we are having their name, and the people, we always recognize them. They asking for a recognition from the government. Yeah. And that was in January 28th, in 1970. There was a meeting in the Manama municipality for the founder themselves. Okay. So it's a very similar story in a way, but it's now it's 50 years. And then in 9th of June, 1970, an Amiri decree by late Amir, Sheikh Isa bin Salman al-Khalifa, who was the main supporter, issue a decree for creation of the Red Crescent. Yeah. And then there is a process that you have to apply for the International Federation to be a member.
Yeah.
And it's a period of evaluation, and then in the General Assembly meeting, it will be announced that this country become as a member. And Bahrain, in the 14th of September 1972, accepted as a full-fledged member in the Federation, and it is number 116.
Okay.
So each added, now we're reaching 192. Bahrain at that time, 116. And once you are a member, even in the treaty or the agreement, we represent the Bahrain internationally. And that's really the beginning of taking that responsibility, international commitment. And in the beginning, Bahrain Red Crescent started focusing on issues locally, not just immediately, international. So we started to have kind of responding to the community needs.
Yes.
And some people, they don't know that we were the first who created the kindergarten. We have two of the kindergarten. In fact, in the beginning there was 3. And that was the idea is we try to get the poor people the chance of getting this pre-education. Because it was really for the elite and the rich people.
Right.
And we started that as one activity locally. And also we have a kind of rehabilitation center for tailoring and also for hairdressing. That is mainly to support people to support themselves. We choose the needy family, we take their member and train them so they can have a job. Those initiative was in the beginning, and we continue the same way. If we start those activities, we can consider it as a pilot, and then the government look to this as something really proved to be useful. They adopt it, we withdraw ourselves, and we go for another thing.
Okay.
So we started in Red Crescent a 2 mobile unit.
All right.
It's run by nurses, social worker, and physiotherapists. And they visited the elderly to encourage elderly to stay home rather than go to the nursing home.
Yeah.
So that was also another pilot, very successfully done. And of course, immediately the National Committee for Elderly, which is headed by the Minister of Labor and Social Affairs, they said we will expand it, we'll take over, and then we give it to the Ministry of Labor and Social Affairs. So this kind of thing we try to accommodate and customize according to the needs locally, and we also have always our responsibility to be in solidarity with any disaster happen in the world.
Right.
So even tsunami, cyclone, earthquake.
Yeah.
The government, we should also stress this, is really supporting the society. They said, this is the money, you go and negotiate it with IFRC, the International Federation of Red Cross, see what is the project that could be done, and it's by the name of the Red Crescent and the Bahrain.
Yes.
And we managed to have so many projects around the world during this 50 years, and we'll continue.
Yes. These projects all have been applied, and a lot of them have really succeeded, and this is not just because of the work that is put behind them. The Red Crescent Society in Bahrain internationally, but specifically we're talking about our society here in Bahrain, have certain principles that they follow when they execute any kind of project that comes up. Can you tell us a little bit about these principles and how they're executed?
The most important principle is the humanity.
Yeah.
It looks a simple idea, but it's something that you are committed to provide help and needs for vulnerable people. Yeah. And you have to identify who is those vulnerable people. As we said, the elderly, that was a group when we decided to do the mobile unit. And the children, the mother, even sick people in certain areas. So you will continue helping those people. Impartiality, that you are, this is another principle, very important in your work. So you will not get aside with something that, like a group of people and thinking or support them in any way, because your aim is to provide based on needs of the people, not on whether they are different race or others.
Right.
And neutrality, neutrality is really, you don't take political position in anything. Sometimes you help even an enemy with the people of a country that may be considered as an enemy for your country.
Right.
And that's happened when, even worldwide. Sometimes when United States and Katrina, other countries are in clash, or even they don't have
right.
diplomatic link, they offer help, and it's going on everywhere. And also independence, that when you are, there's another principle. If you provide, you don't do it for the purpose of political reason or for a purpose of public relation or something like that. You do it to make a change in the life of those volunteers,
right.
and return them to their normal life.
Right.
That's what we are looking for. And it is sometimes people, they said, we don't hear a lot of what you are doing. And that's the strategy that even Red Cross following it.
Yes.
We don't to mix up with using the humanitarian assistance a way for public relation and to a propaganda. Yeah. That's not our
we
idea.
Exist, but when we are needed.
Exactly, and we're looking to the change that we introduce to the work. I mean, we're looking for a result of that change, and that's very, very important. There is also something unique, which they call it unity. Mm-hmm. The International Red Cross only recognize one society for each country. So they don't want duplication and competition unnecessarily between different sections. So even United States has one Red Cross. They could have branches, but it is only one society. China is one, Bahrain is one, and we have the same vote and everything. So those principle is very, very important. And the way we implemented anything, we have to consider it. The people who are providing it has to be signing what they call it the code of ethics. You are committed to a certain rule, especially preserve the dignity of the people that you try to help them. Yeah. So even we don't take too much picture. We don't even, if any picture, we have to ask the permission. Mm. So we don't really make a big propaganda for what we are doing. It's more silently. Even the International Red Cross Committee, which is visiting the detention center and the prisoner, they don't talk and they don't really put in the news what the result of that. They talk confidentially with the government. Right. And within this 150 years, they've thought that's working well. Yeah. And the government respond, and that neutrality protect the health worker and the humanitarian worker, and it will give them an access. Because if you really announce something against the government, or you will be denied the access to the people. Right. And then you will not able to achieve your objective. Right.
It will hinder your work.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. So this principle is followed all through. Yeah. And we always satisfied when we see a child is happy and changing their life. That's the most important. Focus to the changes that produced and when you are helping them.
Yes. Well, before we started today's discussion, we were talking about something very specific. When people hear the Red Crescent or the Red Cross, they usually think, okay, they provide medical aid. And that in reality isn't the full truth. What actually is, if you look at other societies you were mentioning, other NGOs or other societies provide specific help. But the Red Crescent provides all kinds of help when needed. Can you tell us a little bit about the vast of services that the Red Crescent actually does provide?
Yeah. As I told you, even back in the history, when we start focusing on the first aid, Then also creating the Center for Blood Banking.
Yeah.
That's another area. And I think Germany, US, even Lebanon Red Cross, they've been, supported by the government to take care of the blood banking in the whole country.
Right.
So there is some of those engaged with that. In Bahrain, we were also having a blood banking society from the beginning. But later on, when become very sophisticated, the bank, and required, a lab and things, and we thought, we engage the Ministry of Health, but we promote and, encouraging people to go for blood donation.
Yeah.
And also we recognize the people who donate more than 10 times. And this is, we do it yearly, and the 8th of May, which is the birthday of Henry Dunant, the guy who I'm telling you about, the businessman who created the movement itself.
Yeah.
So this is, we call it the International Day of Red Cross.
Yeah.
So that this is an activity is going on. And it's so flexible to the need of the community. So we have also focusing and creating a center for mother and child care. There is some Red Crescent, like the Palestinian Red Crescent, running hospitals.
Yes.
And that's covering, the needs for the people who are living in Egypt and Lebanon and Syria. Yeah. So there's so long list of activities, and that's something really good, to be flexible and adjust yourself. And that's what we're doing. Even now we'll talk about, what's the future plan. So it's unique in a way. They have a part which is operational. That's the movement itself. And also there is also the legal aspect of the treaty and things. And that's very unique. There's nothing, and any other society has these two together. And we are also, as I told you, respond and ready to change, and according to each situation and the needs. Yeah. So now there is a day, some of the organization start to specialize in certain area, and instead of, and they become as a partner. Yeah. They are not necessarily as Red Crescent or Red Cross societies, but they're focusing in supporting the food. Some people, they focus in safe water, and they just put it like some other organization for vaccination of children, others for mothers only and child care, elderly, another category. And again, we are open to those partners. We, as people, they said, if you want to go fast, you go alone. But if you want to go far, you go with other people. Right. So because the far distance, the continuity of something require a lot of resources, and you cannot just do it alone. But if you are, want to do quick things, which is sometimes needed, that's fine. That you can do it alone. This is a change in the way we are, our strategy now. We are not working alone. One of the most important partner is the Royal Organization for Humanitarian Work. Yeah. We've done with them a lot of activities together. Yes. In Somalia, and Gaza, and Philippines. Yes. So that's been jointly. We even approached the Islamic Society, and they also join us in a lot of humanitarian in Bangladesh and in other areas. So we are becoming now very flexible, and that's very unique to Bahrain Red Crescent. Yes. Because I'm also telling our colleague in other society, Red Cross, and they work in silos, on their own. Yes. They don't talk to each other. The other society was joining them in the humanitarian work, and sometimes they meet, in the field rather than their country. We changed that at all. Right. Recently, even the Bahraini diver, they came and they said, we have a project to go and clean the sea, and that's recent, last year. Yes. And we find where we can help them. So we said, we will give you a volunteer. We will put our ambulance wherever your activity. And in the beginning, we thought, this ambulance will be just, precaution.
Yeah.
And we end up by transferring cases and injured people
Yes.
to the hospital.
Yes. It was
So
a need.
that's complementing. That's what we are looking for now. It's more open. We can just, accommodate ourselves and see where they're, but they have to, again, go to our principle.
Yeah.
We don't want people to do it for a purpose of voting or things like that. I mean, if it is focusing to the need of the people and fits within our principle, we will go with that.
Yeah. When we talk about these services that are provided, before we go into the current circumstances, I do want to emphasize that the Bahrain Red Crescent itself does do a lot internationally when it comes to contributing, not just when it comes to sudden issues like tsunamis, as you said, or for instance wars and so on, but also in regular things like, for instance, the pilgrimage in Mecca and other areas where people on a regular basis, large number of the people are there to provide help, and also in order to support other Red Crescents from other countries. How do you value these cooperations between the Bahrain Red Crescent and the regional Red Crescent that are available, or the regional healthcare providers?
I'll give you another example. I met the Secretary General of Bangladesh, Red Crescent. And I said, we have a lot of community from Bangladesh.
Right.
And we need to also recognize their work and what they are contributing to the country. Right. We need to do something for them. They are coming here and leave their family. And think of something that has an impact. And we came up with, or we discovered that Bangladeshi Red Crescent, they're looking after maternal and child health centers around Bangladesh in a remote area where the government is not providing the service. Okay. And so we thought that's really the right place. And we said, can't we rebuild some of those who are having, there's one center we visited in 1963 built, and they could not afford to maintain it. Okay. And it is so, nicely that it is cover their expenses. People pay nominal charge, which cover the salary of the midwife. All right. So it's so nicely that it is self-sufficient, but the building is so really, we visited. When there is a rain, all the water gets in, and they cannot afford to do it. I said, that's a project we want to do. That's a developmental kind of project. It's not responding to a disaster, as you said. Yes. That's beside the disaster. Absolutely. It's a developmental type of project that's really give a message. And we want to tell the Bangladeshi here also that you take care of our family, we will take care of your family. Yes. So the idea, this kind of thing, we try also to search and discuss it with our colleague, and engage. And as you said, it's really rewarding from win-win situation. It fits very well with our duty and responsibility, and it's also, as you mentioned, the Hajj, the also other region. Yes. What we are looking for is to have joint project. Until this moment, we didn't really succeed that much in it. Yeah. We respond individually. Mm-hmm. When there is any need, we just go and
fill that gap.
Fill that gap, and we said each one. Sometimes we duplicate what each one is doing. What is missing to improve that situation is to focus. How can we jointly work for one project? Yeah. It will be more powerful, more effective than just doing it in a single way. Right. European country, they do this kind of, there is a successful stories, and they specialize in certain area, like Germany, I think in the logistic, and other country is focusing in the hospital, others is focusing in the water. Yeah. And they complement each other in one project. Yeah. And that's really the dream that we want to see, and especially now I'm looking after the GCC country, and I would love to see them, and instead of, each one separately respond, we will think together, how can we do something sustained, helping the needy, changing their situation, but together. It's not just to say, we've done this, we first to arrive or things like that.
Understood.
We really have to concentrate on the main objective, which goes very well with our principles.
Yes. And being countries of the same region, sometimes the needs are very similar to each other. Like when it comes to certain things that we see are repetitive in each one of the region's country, but each Red Crescent does it for their own country, is like, for instance, in Ramadan, providing food for the needy during iftar sa'im, as we call it. These kind of things are things that happen annually, every single year, and where the Red Crescents of each region contribute in their own way. But what, in your opinion, would be something jointly that would make it a more successful initiative?
This year, we've done something for Gaza, with the help of also other societies joining us. And we managed to provide, iftar sa'im, but not in Bahrain also, in addition to what we're doing in Bahrain, in Gaza. And that's something that a little bit expanding it beyond locally to be even more.
Absolutely.
And we respect, whatever, even when partners joining us, we know the need of being visible, because they have their own donor and supporter, and they want to see them there. We cannot just tell them, you go under the umbrella of Red Crescent and that's it. We preserve their presence, they preserve their sign, and to respond to their, also supporter for them. But collectively, it's the same project and the same. So there is potentially there is a lot opportunity for we can work together. Definitely. And do it, and I think it will be more effective. That's the dream that we want to do in the future.
Hopefully that will be possible. One of the disasters that the whole world is facing, and also our region here is hit hard by, is the COVID-19. The Society has actually recently organized, in cooperation within the International and Federation of the Red Cross and Red Crescent Societies, a training program entitled Remote Psychological First Aid to Tackle COVID-19. What can you tell us about the importance of spreading this knowledge in addition to the goals and outcomes of this program specifically?
You see, in our strategy there is 3 lines. One is to alleviate the suffering from the vulnerable people. And that's translated in supporting directly the people in needs. Now, the second one is to become an efficient society by having a well-trained member. And that goes with the training. Most of our members exposed to a lot of training, not only the psychological support, but even international humanitarian law and others. That will equip them with all the necessary skills that they need to provide the best care for the vulnerable people. The third one is the fundraising and maintaining and sustaining the financial support, because without money you cannot do anything.
Of course.
So those 3 goes together, and as you mentioned, that training is focused. It's part of the development of our members, how they can be able, most of them, they will be finishing the first aid training. They will be finishing also the international humanitarian law. They know the all regulation and rules. Sometimes we've done even a training for people how, if they are in the field, what's the rule of taking pictures, and which goes with your area of media. And that's again very, very important, because again, if people do mistakes, it will be very bad picture for the society itself. Psychosocial support is very, very important. And even we expanding it, this is not the first time we're doing it, it's reinforcing. It's a newcomer, new members, we expose them, but there's even expertise now, which has been selected to be at the higher level in some of the committee at the international from Bahrain, who are becoming expert in the psychosocial training. because we need it. Even a small, even within locally, if somebody had unfortunately a fire in their house, they lost everything and they lost even their loved one, or even a road traffic accident, those people, they need a support. Yeah. And it will be really a valuable skills for some of our members to learn how to manage and support those people. It's vulnerable people with cancer, with disease. How can we really doing it? So it goes with the second strategy, which is focusing how we develop our people, right. Equip them with the required skills.
Yes. When it comes to the required skills, of course, the COVID-19 was or is a pandemic that was not foreseen. It is a novel coronavirus, and being novel means it is new to the whole world. So how is the procedure in tackling such a new thing and teaching it to the members of the society, keeping in mind that they don't only take care of the vulnerable individuals, but they also take care of the healthcare workers and their own mentalities and the help that they might need?
Exactly. As we said, even although that we originated from a war, but again, the epidemic and pandemic was also part of the history of the movement.
Yeah.
Started from Spanish flu,
1918.
Bahrain also the cholera, and Ebola in Africa was again the Red Cross and Red Crescent and Federation was engaged heavily in that disaster. So it is the procedure. What happens that once there is a kind of crisis, the first thing the IFRC, the International Federation, is sending an appeal, what they call it, an appeal. That appeal, it gives the description of the present situation. So it gives you information what's going on. And then also it will provisionally put the requirement, the needs, and even a cost for it, and also a budget, and will ask the country to contribute.
Yeah.
In the beginning, they put 30 million Swiss franc. And I left this period of time. That was in March. And suddenly they felt it's bigger than this. Yeah. And they raised it to 100. And then 150 million. So what the Federation is doing, they have a reserve money to be used immediately. They don't wait till they collect the money. Yeah. But they presume that they will spend this money, they will respond to whatever plan they are putting, plan of action, and their member will refill the amount they spend. Right. Immediately Bahrain donated an amount of money. Yeah. That's without talking with anybody, immediately. And you feel proud when you see name of Bahrain and the list of donor list, which is with Canada, with the US and UK, Norwegian. And I have a list where there's nobody from Arab world except Turkish with the Red Crescent. Yeah. And immediately, make the contact and then added Bahrain. Yeah. And then Kuwait and Saudi Arabia and Emirates. GCC being in the view of other people that this is a rich country, an oil rich country. They expect them to be there, right? And they should be in the beginning. They could, pay something and do also extra, right? And that's the way we react. Now, what happens in the COVID-19, that a lot of societies in some of the countries, almost they are taking the role of the government, because their government is so weak they cannot even afford to buy the protective clothes for the health worker. Yeah. And the plan of the IFRC, because they have offices all around the country, they know exactly what's needed, and they provide money, and even some shipped from Dubai, where Dubai, for cargo, distributing it to Arab countries. Yes. And I'm talking about just the Middle East. Yeah. And also there is a lot of worry about the African And what will happen?
Of course.
Yeah, because the rich country, they can, able to get and buy whatever,
yes,
respirator and others. So the thing was really to supply the important equipment and the protection. That's taking the bulk.
Yes, yes.
And of course, the education, the other, is going parallel to this.
Yeah.
But if you ask me where the money went, buying all this to the people,
yes,
distributing it, and monitor that distribution should be fast.
Yes.
We were, have a meeting, online meeting, and, the manager or the head of he just get, what happens, how much you spend, how much. And they said, forget about the bureaucracy of, whatever reports and things.
Get the PPE
now
out there.
PPE should be there.
Yes.
And just I want you to hear that's been reached.
Right.
And distributed the hospitals and everything.
Yeah.
That was the IFRC. And of course, even the Lebanon situation recently. Again, we immediately put something for IFRC, because with this 100 year or 150 years experience, I mean, these people know exactly what to do immediately. They have offices in Lebanon. They already identify what's needed, where the places. We take advantage of that.
Yes.
And when I said we also, welcome any partner with us, because even the partner will benefit from these resources that we have.
Right.
Information, you have somebody to talk with directly. And instead of you
Manpower.
doing it in your own and try to find out, what's the requirement, it will take time.
Yes.
These things are already identified. And even the appeal I distributed to all the people to know exactly what is the situation.
Yeah.
So the response is in a very organized way, and you just need to support it financially. And if you manage also, you have to spare money, extra money to directly also to go to, for example, Lebanese Red Cross.
Right.
Then that will be fine.
Yes.
So this is the way in any crisis. We wait for the IFRC, which will be very quick in telling you this appeal. We respond to the appeal. We can also do something else extra.
Yes.
That's the way we are working.
Amazing. I mean, also with, as you said, the 150 years, not only comes experience, but also a sense of responsibility towards disasters like this and issues like what had happened in Lebanon, in Beirut specifically.
And even, while we are talking about, dealing with COVID, does not mean the other crises stop.
Yeah,
we are getting the Mozambique, we are getting also in Sudan, flooding. It's also continuing.
Right.
And we always be careful that we should not just forget those people also.
Yeah.
So disaster is going on, crisis is going on, beside the major
pandemic.
pandemic.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, the Kingdom of Bahrain was actually ranked by Charities Aid Foundation as the first Arab and Gulf country and the 13th globally in the World Giving Index. It is important to mention that Bahrain is the first Arab country that provided aid to more than 37 countries. What does such a ranking and approach tell us about the genuine nature of the people of Bahrain?
The Federation, they putting out of 192 members, they selected 50 societies, and Bahrain was from them, from the 50 society, who consider as the society who are committed to the constitution of the federation.
Yeah, yeah.
And they put the criteria, how much you are responding to the appeal, how much you are paying your subscription. It's very measurable things, very clear, without saying who's number 1 and 2. That's because incentive, it's good, but you have to handle it in a very diplomatic way. When you deal with international and with countries, it's not the same like dealing with a class of a student in a school.
Understood.
So this is, it's good, but we should be careful in interpreting it, especially if it comes not from the organization itself.
Yeah.
And somebody, company, they just want you to subscribe, to be in that rank, And sometimes when you go to the rank, you found only a few people, because those are the people who subscribe and not really comprehensive.
Yeah,
And even they don't tell how they use this data and from where they are getting it. They try to please you, to use it as, for your propaganda, which we don't consider it fits with our principle.
No, understood.
So it's a good news, but we have better news.
It is
that
not
Bahrain is selected within those 50 countries who committed to the requirement and to the constitution of the federation. And that's more than enough. We don't need to do it in commercial way.
No, very, very clearly understood. I mean, rankings like that do support organizations such as the Red Crescent, not internally, but within the public eye. People that don't understand why it's important and their work is important, they might look at the ranking, but internally the Red Crescent does the work just for the sake of the humanitarian issues.
Exactly, and we need also, when something wrong or something, it's our responsibility to change that wrong ideas, even to the public.
Awareness is important.
That's part of our duty.
We've gotten to the end of our show, and before I end, could you just briefly tell me about the future plans and upcoming projects of the Red Crescent Society in Bahrain?
Yeah, as I told you, we are very flexible and respond. Nowadays, we're talking about climate change. And we took some action and we engage ourselves. That's a new thing is going on. In fact, we created a kind of hydroponic, in our area, near to the headquarters, as a signal of our commitment towards the environment. And we are developing ourselves in that area. It's new. We are creating a committee for the environment and protection. Our plan is also to educate first our member what this means. What's your duty in person towards the earth and towards the environment.
Absolutely.
And why we are linked with that? Because today most of the crisis, it's actually it's coming through the change in the climate. When you are talking about flooding and talking, the crisis that we are facing.
Even the pandemic.
Even the pandemic. So it's really affecting us heavily. And we should address it. That was not something a few years back. We didn't never talk about it. Nowadays, it is a priority. And becoming something required a lot of plan, training, as I told you, and to equip our members to do. Even you will be in a very responsible way, even when you are buying, when you are eating, when you are moving the car. There is a lot of responsibility, and that's we would love to see first our members to understand it and practice it. Because they should be a model to be followed. And then they can educate the others. So we are at stage still in the beginning. The digital world and how to deal with the media, it's another area. That will be again a lot of focus nowadays and how we manage, how we will, what we call it humanitarian diplomacy, where we direct it for the sake of the needy. How can we do it this way? It's a powerful, the media is very powerful, but it's not really to fight or to engage in something. You need to think how can we utilize it for the benefit of the vulnerable people. How can we manage in that way? So this is another area that we consider it for the future. And as I told you again, how can we work and expand our partner? We should not work alone and engage others with us, and we will be supporting them in something and they're supporting us in other things. So I could see those three areas. Of course, from the legal point of view, it's another arena. Today, with the development of army and very with the technology again, like for example the drone today, that's not written in the Geneva Convention. Who responsible about it? Before you can say the pilot, you can see him if he made a mistake or done hit a civilian area. Now with the drone, how it will be, the responsibility. And law, in the language of law, you have to have a statement.
Right.
Otherwise, you can't just blame anybody. And the technology, tomorrow there will be a robot will go to the war. And will that robot able to distinguish between the military target and the civilian?
What's the algorithm that will be? Who will write that algorithm?
Exactly. So that's even IFRC is negotiating this even with those factory and to make even the war again safe.
Yeah.
At least it's just focusing in the military and selective. There is a lot of progress. Even they call it the smart bomb and things like that. And they're using very precise, and also they share the civilian map,
Right.
so they avoid but it happens, mistakes. But that's another area where in the future, so there is a lot of things, with the changes that we are facing, we accommodate ourselves.
Yeah.
And we have to be prepared. Very soon it will become just a normal thing.
Inshallah.
So those are the three areas that I could see, in the future we have to work on it.
Thank you so much for being with us today and answering most of our questions, and hopefully we'll have some updates in weeks to come. Thank you for being with us, Dr.
Thank you for you, because giving us the opportunity to explain that. Thank you.
And we'd also like to thank you, dear viewers, for watching, and see you next week in another episode of Inside Edition.